I'm Kevin Kaduk, Head of Content at CHGO.
And I'm Greg Boysen of CHGO Blackhawks.
And this is CHGO Tavern Style, presented by Salerno's Pizza, our favorite tavern style pizza here at CHGO. Greg, I got to tell you, I have no voice right now. After the Chris Chelios retirement, the Red Wings versus the Blackhawks last night, I'm feeling a little hoarse.
Well, some of us actually had to work yesterday, so my voice is just fine.
You were preserving it in the press box, so I appreciate that. So maybe you'll carry the day here. I want to talk about court storming. It doesn't really happen in hockey. You can't really storm a hockey rink. It's probably happened maybe sometimes, but in college basketball over the weekend, Wake Forest beat Duke. The Wake Forest fans stormed the court, and in the process, Duke star Kyle Filipowski was injured, hurt his knee. Jury's still out on how much he is hurt, but it's a big deal for the 8th-ranked Blue Devils. And after the game, John Shire, the coach of Duke, basically kind of started the debate, saying, when are we going to ban court storming? Like, how many times does a player have to get into something where they get punched or they get pushed or they get taunted right in their face? It's a dangerous thing. And we've seen it this season. Caitlin Clark, the great Iowa basketball star, when Ohio State beat Iowa, same sort of thing. She got helicoptered. Thankfully, she wasn't hurt badly. But it's really kind of kicked off this debate. So should the NCAA ban court storming? If so, how?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's even – I'm all for big celebrations and for special moments, sure. But fans don't belong on the court.
Yeah.
You don't belong on the court. Like, you know, what we saw with this Wake Forest stuff, you had said they were favored to win that game. Like, It wasn't like a winless team beating the number one team, greatest upset ever. The players need to be protected. Like, you do not need hundreds of drunken frat boys and sorority sisters running at them. And, like, you're trespassing. You're criminals at that point. You do not belong on a court. If I ran by myself onto any playing field, I'd get dragged off by security and arrested. And now I'd have a criminal record.
But if there was 5,000 of you.
Right. Well, if there's 5,000 of me, that's a whole other problem.
We're in trouble.
It's a whole nother problem. But I know it's difficult to stop. You know, maybe you have more security in front of the or if you storm the court, they got to come off eventually. You just start picking them off.
Yeah.
Get the rubber or the plastic handcuffs out.
Right.
And start the zip ties. Y'all got to call your parents because you need bail money.
I think it's such a difficult issue to talk about because it's kind of become this thing that's expected. If you beat a team that you're an underdog against or you want to celebrate a big win, it's kind of considered part of the college experience, and probably even more so than it has been 20, 30 years ago. And I don't know if it's just social media, people like the viral clip part of it, but exactly, like, how do you stop it? Now, I did see on social media Creighton actually did a pretty good job. I think a lot of this comes down on the schools. One is, how do you prepare for it? Do you have security ready? Are you making sure that you're at least holding the student section back until the other team gets off the floor, which was not the case in Wake Forest. And in the case of Creighton, they actually do a good job where they actually form a wall where they just kind of cordon off the entire opposing bench. So you do have to prepare, right? Security. I think just expectations-wise, too. I mean, sometimes when these things happen, okay, yeah, you beat John Wooden's UCLA team who's won 183 games straight. Yeah, maybe that calls for jumping on. Like, now, if you beat a team that's 2 games ahead of you in the stands, in the standings, are you really going to do that? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea, if you're going to let them do it, at least hold them off until the teams get off the court. Then you let them have their moment if you have to do it that way. But there needs to be some sort of, like, an example made, penalties, something. Because at this day and age, these kids, there's so much money invested in these kids at these top programs and any program, like, and you're also hurting their future.
Just forget the money part of it, just the health and aspect of those players and also the students too.
Right. It's a dangerous activity, and this is now in my mid 40s. In my early 20s, I would have been like, shut up, old man. But life changes,
and there's a big part of that present in this debate is that the young kids are saying, well, hey, I'm not listening to what Kevin Kaduk and Greg Boysen are saying. I'm not listening to what Pat Forty or Jay Bilas are saying.
Right. Well, you know, then there's so many cameras around. You know who bought these tickets.
Yeah.
You storm the court. Guess what? You're no longer a student here, or you're suspended, or you're fined, or we're going to tack another $5,000 onto your tuition. Something like you don't see those at the Final Four games. You don't see that at the NCAA tournament games because those arenas have proper security. So, you know, again,
a lot of it comes down to the schools.
Yeah, and you know, if it is going to have to come down to the individual schools and arenas to provide the proper security or the procedures or the responsibilities or the consequences if it happens.
Now, I want to ask you if you've ever actually run on a field or a court, but first I want to say check out Salerno's on Tap, 1201 West Grand Avenue. They've got tavern-style pizza. They have ice-cold beers. They are there before and after Blackhawks and Bulls games, a short drive or Uber ride over from there. Head to salernospizza.com or call up 312-666-344 to make a reservation, or you can even get it delivered, which we often do here at CHGO.
We do. It's great stuff.
All right. So I have a couple of field storming stories, which I'll share with you, but I want to know if you've ever done it.
One time, not by choice, was visiting a buddy at Iowa. They beat your Badgers to go to the Rose Bowl. I was sitting in the student section. I had no choice.
Yeah.
Like, you were going, and you couldn't just stand and say, no, not for me. I went. It was kind of fun, but as soon as I got over the wall and on the field, I immediately looked to get off of there as quickly as possible because it was chaos.
What year was this?
Oh, early 2000s.
Okay.
You know, it had to be 2000, long time ago. But yeah,
Gotcha.
It was, I mean, and I get that's a big rivalry. Going to the Rose Bowl when going to the Rose Bowl meant something.
Right.
But yeah, it wasn't my choice. It was basically, I have 20,000 people behind me going, I'm going too.
So football is a little bit of a different animal because there's more room to run around, but there's also more people. You know, you mentioned that I'm an alum of the University of Wisconsin. They famously had a very scary incident in 1993 where kids were getting crushed up against, and it forced a lot of changes. And Wisconsin, I don't think, have had I think maybe they ran on when they beat Ohio State once, but they took down the barriers and they made sure it was at least a little bit more safer or controlled. They did a lot of educating, and it never had that situation ever again. I used to go to the Northwestern games in the mid '90s. The Pat Fitzgerald when he was a student there, the Cardiac Cats, and I was in high school, and we used to run on the field all the time there with the kids. We thought it was a blast. Like, we'd go there and we'd buy tickets for $10 or $15, and there was actually a couple of games where, as a junior or senior in high school, I ended up on the goalposts. Nice. And people are throwing snowballs at you. And I actually kind of think like, well, I could have probably easily fallen off of that. And, like my parents probably wouldn't have sued them because they would have said you shouldn't have been up there. But, there's a liability issue for schools that play here too. So,
well, unfortunately, the way things go is things don't change until something really bad happens.
I know.
And a star player spraining a knee probably isn't bad enough.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now it's Duke, I know I shouldn't say this, but I don't really hate when Duke.
No, I don't care when bad things happen to Duke as a whole, but I don't want to see bad things happen to individual players just because they lost the game.
Absolutely. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure it's going to be a hot topic all this week in sports land, and we'll go from there. But for now, this has been CHGO Tavern Style, presented by Salerno's Pizza. Make sure you're subscribing to this podcast. Go to the Chicago Sports Podcast on your favorite provider. You'll get this in your feed each day a week. It's our content and party cut portions. I'm Kevin Kaduk. That's Greg Boysen. Thanks to Sarah for producing. We'll see you next time.
We all silly like the mayor.